throughout this day, what we hope you've managed to do in your conversations and in listening to our speakers and engaging in the workshops and the activities is just get a sense of the challenges that we have in navigating what it means to push through the boundaries of the extractive economy and the colonial mindset. So like in the last session, for example, we were talking about what it means to be in collective ownership or governance of like assets and buildings, but like actually challenging concepts of governance and ownership because they stem from a colonial mindset. And how do we actually like hold those two things? That sometimes when we're looking at this big picture of the just transition and we're all dreaming of the regenerative economy, we're also in this place in the extractive economy, creating little worlds of possibilities like today, like every day in your communities. And we just wanted to kind of like allow us to zoom in and zoom out through the day and realize that, not one thing, but many things make that work possible. And the reason I'm really excited about this conversation is I feel like we got two speakers who are going to really hold that in their conversation and how they practice their work and their organising. And again, just to remind you, patties, some fizzy drinks, and music, a live band and singing is coming up afterwards, so stick around. And the sun's out, so that's great.
Woo! Just off the top of my head, I'm going to riff. So this plenary is about imagination and experimentation. And what we have found as Decolonising Economics and like doing our Nourishing Economics ecosystem is that there's people who are able to hold that vision of like the future and also there's people who are like doing the work, as we spoke about, of stopping the bad, and there's people who are doing the work of building the new. And sometimes we have like conversations with people who are like, I'm really, I want to start a co-op, but I'm scared. And I don't know what it's going to look like. And also the reality of being like racialized people experimenting things, there's sometimes like a higher risk or, with how the system operates. And so we wanted to speak to you guys today to help us to sort of situate our organising within the idea of expansive imagination and taking those risks as well. So, first question. What is the reality of trying to create change in this system?
Kimberly, you're speaking from here.
Big question.
Cool, so we're starting with the really easy entry-level questions.
Yes.
I guess for some context, so until very recently, I was a Labour councillor in South London. I stood down for many different reasons. And I also do a lot of work on Windrush justice, but a lot of the work that I do has been in the stopping the bad, working within dominant system space, rather than the kind of more expansive, looking outward space. But that said, I saw a lot of things when I was on the council where I thought there were opportunities to potentially start modelling different alternatives. But the reality is to manoeuvre through that system is really, really hard. So one thing that springs to mind is kind of how communities responded to addiction. And one of the things we had to do a lot of was knocking on people's doors and kind of just asking how they were and if there was anything we could do to support them in any way. And one of the big issues in the place that I was representing was people who were struggling with addiction, particularly if they were homeless or unhoused, and the way that would then show up in the community. And people's immediate response, because there are no alternatives, is to have quite a punitive approach to that. So they would say, what everyone really wanted was to feel safe and for their children to feel safe as well. But they were like, ultimately, we don't feel safe. There are needles everywhere, and the only option available to us is to call the police. And ultimately, everyone knew that didn't solve the issue for anybody, but they didn't really feel like they had any other recourse. And so people are now trying to see, could we have a safe consumption room? And what would we need to do kind of within the parameters of working through the council? How can we make that happen and what levers are available to us? And I think that kind of work is really important in kind of showing that there are other ways to do things which benefit all of us and would actually make all of us safe, but at the same time still meeting the needs of people where they are. And I found a lot of being on the council extremely frustrating and at some points often demoralising, but I think there was space for hope there, but it also required kind of working within the system as it exists, at least for now, while showing that there are other ways that we could live. So yeah, there is. I do feel a bit hopeful. We have also had a change in government, as I'm sure many people have noticed, and but it's not a particularly. So we're having some shifts, and again, it's not been the most encouraging and inspiring election. I'll put it that way. But I do also see some space for hope there and for, the potential to make some change. So obviously we saw that Jeremy Corbyn has won his seat. And some people have been campaigning and, thank you for doing that to get him in. But we've also seen the rise of multiple independents that have run on, say, like pro-Palestine tickets, for more Greens, and that gives me hope as well. I think that people are actually like crying out for something new, and the question is like whether we can make some small changes within the system as we've got it, but I think it's actually on all of us to start showing, like using that as an opportunity to show what is possible. And so I'm choosing to be hopeful. I'm coming off of Twitter because it's making me feel very, very demoralised. Yeah, need to delete that. But yeah, I think there is space within what we've got to build something better, and I'm feeling very hopeful about that actually.
Take this one.
Hello. Hey, that's very loud. Off the back of that, I think that, I feel actually like really hopeful after the election because, I don't know, I feel like in the exit polls we're being told that there's going to be 13 reform seats, and then instead, like the pro-Palestine independents and Greens outnumbered the reform seats. Like that's, and people were saying that independent candidates, like it was impossible for them to win. And then people made the impossible possible. And even candidates like Liam Mohammed and Andrew Feinstein, like they diminished Labour majorities, which is just, it's no small feat. And it was done by grassroots organising. It wasn't done by like big institutionals or the establishment or like the media who were on the side of Labour and of Reform and others. And so I think there's a lot of hope. And I was chatting to Leanne at the Palestine March, and she was saying she's going to run next time and she's going to win. And I think that is really encouraging. So I think that I feel a lot of hope, I think, because of, I also think that this time skilled up a lot of new people to be organisers. Like a lot of people who'd never organised before, I think have felt so passionately, as they should, about, in particular, the genocide that's happening in Gaza, and about how messed up our political system is, and that they decided to join these different independent campaigns, and they now know how to organise people, which I think is really powerful for the future. So as much as I think that we shouldn't be putting, I think my hope more comes from the people who've been organised by this, not as much as the political system changing that much. I don't know, like today I saw this like feminist account posted a picture of Rachel Reeves being like, yay, female chancellor. And I was really angry, so I commented like, yay, hashtag girl boss is going to like continue austerity, ha ha ha, like love that. And some social media manager somewhere is probably panicking. But like, I think I'm worried that in this moment, the people who maybe didn't get out and campaign for these candidates or have never organised before, but like were mostly motivated by like hating the Tories, are now just going to be like, oh, we're good, so I'm not gonna start doing things. And I'm worried about that complacency, and I think it's already can be quite. I was chatting today about to Jess, who I'm now going to make really uncomfortable, who both of us are launching the Awetu School of Organising next week, which is a school of organising. It's pretty clear from the name. But the first cohort that we're having is we've made this curriculum on climate justice and organising and collective liberation, and we're going to be piloting our first curriculum soon. And that came from this like frustration of, I think, a lot of people, younger people in particular of our generation, who are like, where their identities and their politics on them is like an identity, as in they wear all the things that tell you what their politics are, but they don't as much like practice those politics in organising in community. And I just think about like how powerful we would be if all the people who like shared the things on social media and like wore the t-shirts and like, I don't know, do people wear bracelets or necklaces? Who knows? The different things, you know, the commodities of activism, if they actually like were in a local organising group and like showed up every week and gave like an hour of time or something and learn how to facilitate meetings, like do the behind the scenes stuff, like how much we'd be able to do, and also how much less burnt out people would be. Because I think I keep seeing the same people everywhere. It was talked about on a panel earlier. So we're trying to work out like how is it that we get these people who do obviously really care, but maybe just don't like understand how to organise in the same way. And how do we give that education? And our curriculum is actually the first pilot is just for 18 to 24-year-old Black people or people of African descent. Because we feel like it's really important, especially in the climate movement, to empower those communities in particular because they're really underrepresented. But I think in this current, I don't even know if I've answered your question, but in this current, I'm just yapping on. But I think that it can be quite difficult to organise people, but I think we need to do it, and I think we need to not all of us, but a lot of us here, I think are probably having similar issues, and so I think having spaces like this where we can like cross-pollinate and talk to each other about what we're struggling with in Bristol and what we're struggling with in Oxford and what we're struggling with in Brighton or London, and try and learn from each other, I think is really useful in how do we like both organise and mobilise people moving forward.
Sorry, Mike. Is that right? Actually, a question for all three of you. Oh, what? On the panel now. All three of you are writers. And I guess I'm interested in your practice of writing, not necessarily specifically the books you've written, that you can shout out to them if you wish to, but in the practice of writing and being a writer, how that enables you to practice your imagination and support you in ideas of imagination in the future. And then integrating that into your organising.
Yeah. So the other day I was thinking, how do I think of something to write? And quite often, like, I will just hear something that someone has said, or like I will just have this voice which is like, you should look into this. And then it's 1 a.m. and I'm on Wikipedia. And I'm just like, damn, this is so interesting. The history of concrete. Wow. Like, and I find like, yeah, the practice of imagination for me in writing is just like it's like a sense of like calling of like, there's this thing that just keeps on bothering you. And I feel like as organizers, we all have something that just like bothers us that we just can't let go of. And I guess the fertilizer of imagination in that is like, what happens when you just like align the calling and align the conversations you have with people and align the experiences that you have in community. And when you add all of those up, you're able to sort of like build that sort of utopia, I guess, through the power of ideas and the power of communication and the power of like talking. And yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but I think for me, like the practice of imagination is like lots of the things are already in existence and lots of the things people already know. And it's just sometimes just putting it together for people to like riff off and to add onto. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but it's just like, yeah, it's so interesting the way in which like we all have a vision and like the multiple ways in which we all practice it through like community kitchens, through writing, through creativity, through like, you know, community gardens, and like the ways that, yeah, practice allows imagination. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll shout the book. I've been thinking a lot about, like, especially as Black economic thought and practice is just not really recorded in lots of places, and it's not necessarily, when we think of economics, we don't really. There's not a lot of like Black authors or Black thinkers that talk about our own economic lives. And so it doesn't, like, when I was thinking, I was like, this feels like imagination, or is it more like recording and archiving? And like, what's the difference between those two things? Because those things already like exist, and it's just like, how do you record it and share with people, was what I was going through when I was putting the words together.
It's just, if I'm honest, like, I haven't been, like, this year, I haven't really been writing that much. And I think it is a consequence of having taken on too many things. And and I haven't really had much space to imagine. And like, it feels like a big loss, actually. And what I'm hoping is, from stepping back from some of the things that I didn't really feel like I was best placed to deliver, right? Like, I think there are other people who are probably better suited to doing something like being on the council and like working in that really restrictive space and like maneuvering through that system. There's like someone else who is, I hope, better at that than I am, and also finds more joy in it, because I didn't really. And whereas the previous 2 years I spent all of that, well, not all of that, but like a significant amount of that time writing. And I found it really helpful for kind of thinking through my own politics, but also having, the luxury in lots of ways, because, I was paid to write my book, and, didn't by any means make me a millionaire, but it's a huge privilege and a luxury to be given the space to be able to think through your ideas and to write and to, read feminist scholars, Black feminist scholars, be specific, and try and make sense of, how does race and class like affect our outcomes and shape the way our world looks. And I guess also speaking to what you were saying about, it's often the same people that we see at a lot of things. And that's true for right now, and true for a lot of the spaces that I'm in, which can be great because so often we're out in the world, not in community. And I think we deserve to have that space where we are in community, and it nourishes us all. And I think it's important. But I am also interested in, how do we get those ideas out to wider audiences, to people who wouldn't necessarily be in these spaces, wouldn't be engaging with those ideas. And that's what I've always found really helpful about writing, and kind of one of the reasons that that I wrote my book in the first place. Name the book. Oh yeah, the word didn't shout. It's called Black Girl No Magic. It's in all the good bookshops and Amazon, but don't get it from there. Because we need to bring more people in, and I think writing is one way of doing that, and organising is another.
Yeah, I really loved your book, by the way. I really loved the essays. It was really funny, which was great. I always think saying someone's funny is a really big compliment. That's why I said it as well. But it's also true. I think so. The stuff that I write about is, I'm writing from a very particular place, and I would like to be able to try and write from a different place at some point, but the place I'm always writing from is like, I want to write things that are like accessible, like it's like you're chatting to a mate and you don't feel like someone's talking down to you, you feel like you're just hanging out, and you don't just read it and go, I'm a better person, like I don't need to do anything, I just know things. You say, oh, I'm gonna do something actively, and it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but in like a friendly, uncomfortable way is the kind of way I try and write from. And I think the reason that I think I write from there is more just because I feel like there's a lot of books that I feel like people read or carry around. So that they like just feel like they've done something rather than actually doing something, or actually organising or getting involved in stuff. And I really don't want my work to be that. I want it to be that it moves people into action. Like, I think that's what our politics should do to us. It's like, it's not just like a badge that we wear. It's like something that like moves us, and that we build, and that we act and we live. And so that's why I wrote my book, It's Not That Radical, to try and be like, oh, what is something that I wish existed? I don't know, like for my friend who like just isn't in organising spaces at all and like would feel really talked down to by a lot of like very academic books. And also I think because I've been influenced by Audre Lorde's writing, and I think a lot of that feels very like friendly. Like I feel like I'm talking, like an auntie is talking to me or like a friend. And I know it sounds weird, but I feel like, no, this is very weird. Well, no, it's not that weird. It's fine. This is the ADHD in my brain coming out as I'm sitting and talking to you all. I hope that's all right. But I feel like Audre Lorde is like one of my best pals, even though we've never even been alive in the same time, because we spent so much time together. You know, like reading her work, and I think when I try and write, I also think, oh, if someone's going to bother to read like an entire book I've written, by the end of that, we spent quite a long time together, and like. I would like to have like had an impact on that person in some way, but also I want them to think of me as like a fond friend and not someone who's like talking down to them. I think that's like a way that I try and write in a way that there's always like an action to it. But I think as a reader, I think like fiction has had a really big impact on my imagination in particular. And yeah, I think fiction kind of pushes us to like imagine new worlds. Like if we can imagine worlds where there are like dragons and I don't know what else is there? Aliens and stuff. There probably are aliens though. Then where are the dragons? Komodo dragons, but yeah. But if we can do that, and like if we can get used to doing that, then we can also imagine a world that's better than the one that is now, that we have now. And so that's why I think fiction is also really important. And I hope that answered the question in some way.
I have a question, which I'm also going to extend to you, Guppi. I feel like there's, we've talked about like the hope and like the vision, but there's an element of like consistency to get up every day and write, to get up every day and set up like the structures towards that better world, and like to get up every day and be like, okay, we need to go and find this resource. And there's like a level of consistency and commitment that it takes to do that. Like, what is the sort of fire in the engine that supports your levels of like consistency and commitment to that long vision, I guess, is my question.
It's really similar to how you responded to your writing. So it's like this constant nagging, basically, of like an unsettling that is an acknowledgement of like knowing that things are so possible to be better because they have been experienced. And I love what you say about, well, one of the things I use for collective organizing is like collective organizing is literally the medicine of working us out of the harm that has been caused by the extractive economy, because it is the experiences that we have in organizing that enables us to heal together, and in like committing to each other, and just knowing that, experiencing that, and then seeing how often we are told that's not available to us, and like just that nagging is just always there. So and also like, yeah, so much curiosity because of like the small experiences of where something has been done in a different way, or like in a way outside of the system, in a way that we've been taught, and you're like, oh, this is I can exist as a being in this world, but like as this person that also brings me deeper towards who I am. And I do feel like, yeah, maybe in the last, particularly in doing work with decolonizing economics with Nonny, yeah, just the work brings me deeper to who I am because I'm uncovering parts of myself and also unearthing, I guess, different truths of what the world is. And so that's just, it's like that feeling of like inner expansiveness and outwardly expansiveness. And it's a genuine, like physiological thing that's happening within me. And so when you experience that, it's like, why would I not move towards that more? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think building on that a bit, oh God, I hate when I'm becoming one of those people that says those things. Next thing you know, I'm going to say this email finds me well or something. But yeah, I do feel like I don't really know how else to be. and I don't really feel motivated by anything else. Like if I'm not doing something that I feel is, in some small way moving us towards justice of some kind, then I find it very difficult to be motivated at all. And I don't really feel like myself otherwise. But at the same time, I'm also trying to learn a lot more about rest, and you can only do so much. I feel like, a lot's happened over the past few years in my personal life, and I don't think I'll be able to continue to get up every day and do the work if I don't stop for a bit. And so I'm kind of seeing the next few months or maybe longer as, I'll still be, doing some things, but actually kind of stepping back from lots of different type of work, and just trying to rest so that then I'll be able to have the stamina for the longevity. And it's a work in progress. It's not the easiest thing, but I'm trying my best because I want to be in it for the long haul. And I think we all do, but you can't if you're exhausted. And I've already been signed off once, so I don't want that to become the cycle that is my life. Resting as well, resting so that I can continue doing the work.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I find it really hard to rest. Like, I find it so hard. I went away for like 5 days. I left my work phone and my laptop at home because I just knew I would work if I didn't. And I still was messaging Jess on my personal phone about like, oh, have we done this with the Wetu? And Jess was like, go away. Like, you're meant to be taking a break. So I taught myself how to crochet because I also think... I think also for me, the like needing to do things, I do think is maybe like the like ADHD. My brain is like all the time. And so I kind of feel like I need to do something with that. And I can find it hard to not. But I think that I think when I'm asked like what motivates me, I think in a similar way, I'm also just like, it's just like, to me, it's kind of my default setting. But how I often speak about it is that when I was younger, I don't know if other people have this experience, but I felt really like guilty for like I had this like survivor's guilt that I got to grow up in a world that is like as safe as it is now. Oh, I'm gonna cry. It's okay though. But I think I would. It was not healthy. But I would like think I'd like write down the names of like my ancestors who came before me who didn't have freedoms, and like I'd look into like what life was like for like black women who came before me and my ancestors in Jamaica. And I would like make myself like look at their names as I was like studying at school, and I'd be like, you have to work hard because they didn't get any of these opportunities, and you have to change things in this world because they changed things for you. I've got better with that perspective because I think that was very like almost like self-flagellating and like not healthy for the long run, and it led to a lot of burnout because it was this like basis in like guilt, which I don't think is a really good motivator for a really long time. But now instead, I think I just have this like. Instead, I think anytime that I feel like, oh, is this not worth it, or like, do I like, is what I'm doing important? I do think about my ancestors who were like enslaved and maybe thought so many times the things that they were doing, is this worth it? Like, are things going to change? But they still managed to like imagine outside of their circumstances. Like they still managed to imagine that like a world where they were free was worth it against those circumstances. And if they were able to do that then like what excuse do I have now? But in a way of it's actually like, I think a joy that one day I hope that our descendants look back and think, I'm so glad for what they did. It gave us freedoms. It's motivating me to make things better and to continue. I think that's what motivates me, is more this like deep gratitude, I think, for the ancestors who came before and who changed things before us. And I think it's really good for us sometimes to like sit and like remember the like organising that's come before us, and try and do that in like a way that's inspirational and not just like the guilty cycle, because that's not healthy and I would not recommend that.
I'm just going to do a quick shout out. Our friend Zara wrote a play, and the play is about the organising that was happening within the Haiti slave revolt. and basically it's like the people are meeting in the garden and they're like chatting and like whispering about how to do it. There's flirtation, like two of the characters are like lovers, but then like one of them is like, we need to get out of here, and the other one is like, why are you just like, there's going to be consequences, like what are we going to do? And I found like that play, which we should all sort of peer pressure Zara to write, like to put it on stage because it was amazing. But the idea that like there were like pockets of time where like our ancestors were like, visioning and practicing the things that we're like also doing now, but also in like gardens, in land like we are today. And I just found the continuity of that so beautiful. And for someone to sort of like imagine what that moment was like was really beautiful for me. I just thought I'd shout it out. It was really great. What's the big Anatomy of a Black Rebellion. It was really great. Yes, what should our final question be? No pressure. Do you have one? I actually don't. Does anyone in the audience have? That's the best one. Questions. Yes. Come forward. Yeah.
Hi. Okay, it's a question. There's a question in there, but it's going to be like a mini rant, so bear with me. I love to imagine. It's been my confidence since I was a child. A survival tactic as well. And I do it a lot. And then I end up getting upset when I don't see enough progress in relation to like the end goals of my imagination, if that makes sense. And I'm going to use an example. So this past week, Hurricane Beryl has destroyed some Caribbean countries, Grenada and its sister islands, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, specifically where my family's from, Jamaica, destroyed my high school, and so much and so forth. And I dabble in like climate activism. My main space right now is the criminal justice system, and that's very taxing, and I experience a lot of burnout. But this week has been very saddening for me because, I mean, it's been happy. I've been happy and I've been sad. I've been seeing the Caribbean community in the UK organise. We have been, collecting donations. People have been, like on social, especially on Twitter, like, give me your family surname. Let me see if they're okay and that kind of stuff. Like, I spent like the past week trying to connect to my high school friends and my family or whatever. And that's happening, right? And then people, they're saying, oh, there should be like a climate fund that we can tap into, so when these things happen, we can just use that money. But then on the flip side, being here, right, and dabbling in the climate justice movement, I'm seeing, like, I used to work at Friends of the Earth. I've worked with Green Deal New Rise. I keep on getting the name wrong, but yeah. And I've seen nothing from them about what's happening. But they want to talk about the global south and the countries affected most by the climate crisis and stuff like that. And then also, like, I don't know much about COP. Again, it's not my space, but, like, there kind of is, like, a climate fund, but, like, there's no money in there and nothing's happening. So then I get really frustrated because I'm just like, in my end goal imagination in that context, maybe that fund exists and they can just tap into it, but then other things are happening as well. So then seeing, like, the climate organizations say nothing, not even, like, a tweet, and then seeing my community organize and, like, seeing the destruction and hearing about the deaths and that kind of stuff, I'm just like, oh my gosh, enough isn't happening. But then I also am experiencing burnout by doing this other work. So then I get frustrated by my imaginations. So I want to ask, how does one deal with that, if that makes sense? Yeah.
Really good question.
Thank you for that question. First, on the fund stuff with COP, like, there is a loss and damage fund that people are trying to negotiate, but it's taken like a decade to get to the point where they are now, and there's been like an agreement to it, but there's a lot of negotiations happening on trying to get countries to, so they got it agreed, but then they're now trying to like make sure that it's done in a way in which countries are able to actually access the money. There's also a climate resilience fund, but things are very slow with the international stuff, and I left COP spaces because it was just not for me. But for other people, I'm really grateful for the people who do that stuff. I think I really get you, because my imagination also does frustrate me, like, a lot in many ways as well. I imagine this world in which, like, I'm also Jamaican, where and I was born in Kingston, and I've also been really worried about my family this week and, like, relieved that they're okay, but then lots of other people aren't, and it just, yeah, it's very sad about the whole situation. I think of this, like, analogy of mushrooms and mycelium, and I'm really sorry if anyone's actually a mycologist in here and it's going to be like, nope. But like, mycelium's like under the ground all the time. Also, if you had me say this before, I'm also really sorry. It's like under the ground all the time, and there's like millions of their networks, and we won't see it. And it's like growing from life, and it's growing from death, and it's communicating to each other and communicating to trees, and like redistributing like nourishment to the parts that need it, and like it's connected to everything, and it's growing so much, but we don't see any of this. But maybe one day we go foraging and we find this like massive like chicken of the woods. It's like a really big mushroom to find foraging, and you might see that mushroom and be like, that's a miracle, it came out of nowhere. But really it was only possible because of the underground mycelial networks that have been building for so long that we didn't see, that kept going and kept growing, both from death and from life, so that mushroom was possible to fruit. And I think that social change is quite similar, because sometimes when we see like a big win, we think it's a miracle and it came out of nowhere, or sometimes we attribute that win just to the like individual group or person who was involved with it. But really, like, none of those would be possible if it wasn't for the mycelial networks that were built beforehand. Many of those campaigns or that work that didn't see a win in its lifetime, that built those networks that made it possible for that mushroom of that change to fruit. And I've found that metaphor really useful for me, because it's made me remember that, like, whatever I am doing, I'm building mycelial networks, and that one day the mushroom will fruit, and it is coming, but not to get preoccupied with needing it to come now and in this way, because I don't know, lots of wins that I've seen, like whether it was when we like stopped the Cambo oil field, that wouldn't have been possible if it hadn't been like decades of people who were campaigning against North Sea oil and gas, and like no one cared, well, no one cared, but like no one was listening to them, like they weren't seeing wins. But if they hadn't done their work, we wouldn't have got our win. And so I'm like, when I'm not seeing the win, or I'm not seeing the world that I want now, I'm not going to let that make me give up, because we need to build those mycelium networks, and one day someone else gets to enjoy the mushroom. Maybe it's not us, but it's still coming and it's still worth it. So I hope that's useful.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, did you want to?
No, I had nothing to say. I just enjoyed the interaction.
Yeah, I have very similar frustrations, and so that it, climate isn't the space that I work in, but we have this a lot with people who are working on windrush justice, because obviously it's just been going on for ages, and everyone's frustrated in seeing other, similar injustices moving ahead and speeding forward. And a lot of the kind of windrush campaigners and people who have been affected by the scandal compare it to the post office scandal, and they're saying, they've had huge wins, and it's because of this one TV show and this one moment. But then I actually went to speak to some of the people who worked on that, and then in reality, as you were saying, like that is not what happened, and there were loads of things that were happening before that are just, obviously they're quiet and they're slow and they're much less sexy, that people didn't see. And so it looks as if you've had this big moment where in actual fact there were loads of people doing work for a really, really long period of time before you got this flashpoint where lots of change happened. And I think that is true for organising on most issues. But when you can kind of see where you want to get to and it's not happening, it is extremely frustrating. But the day will come. And also you're doing the work that is going to get it there, by doing the organising like within Black communities whilst being ignored by the big players. The work that you're doing is the work that is going to eventually bring about that justice. And I think there's a lot of solace to find in that. And also I'm like always like proselytizing now about rest, but but you mentioned burnout, and it's also okay if you wanted to take a step back from those organising spaces for a bit if you felt comfortable doing that. Which can be really difficult, especially if it's something that's affecting you and your family and people in your life. And Like I have a friend who does stuff on Palestine, and she's Palestinian, and for her, she said it makes her not feel hopeless, the fact that she is doing something, even though obviously it's not enough. But it is something, and that gives her hope and motivation. And I find that really useful to remember as well, because that helps me too.
I feel like for us, as Decolonising Economics, the first couple of years when we were organising, we were just like fighting every day. We'd go... It was literally like, we'd go to spaces and like, white people would be like, this isn't economics. Men will be like, talk about it in this way. And I think, and we recently have been, after like 5 years, we recently have moments where the things that we were speaking about like years and years ago are actually just happening all around us. And, and we did our percentage of that, but like of just seeing, like, I think time, history, context has its own, moves things in its own ways. And like when that collides with the individual actions of like groups, of collectives, it's just so wonderful to see like what's it called, peaks and troughs. And we've just been actually like reflecting on like, we had this dream of like doing this event when we first started years ago, and it didn't feel like it would happen at some point, and we felt really demoralized at some points, and we felt really like tired. And it's just even just today, it just feels quite emotional to see what is possible when we just don't give up, I guess. And also when we rely on other people, and like when I love to give up too sometimes. I'm an Aries. I get really like hot and frustrated. I'm like, oh, but and I think that's the thing of like relying on people and like the transfer of energy. It's like a relay. And there's periods where you're just like, fuck this, I need a bit of a break. And then someone else is like, I have energy, and you're like, great, I'm going home. And I think, it's a really good question that you've asked, and I think that's why I feel like community and interdependence just allows us to continue when we would be really tired. And also, I'm so grateful for everyone coming and all your tiredness and all your burnout. It's really like, we have a lot of gratitude as well.
It's pointing at you because you always make me cry. Please, another round of applause to our fantastic panelists, Mikaela Loach, Kimberly McIntosh, Nonny. We are ending, we're ending this session. You have been so committed. Please commit to a little bit more time for some fun, which will emerge in a second. Firstly, could I invite you to step off the stage? And can I invite onto the stage Natasha, Sophie, Dylan, and Chaitanya? Yes, you. Okay. Obviously, people know DE is Nonny and Guppi, but genuinely, DE is... Oh, is he sleeping? No. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is a real family moment. I'm sorry, darling. Oh. If you need to go off, it's okay. Okay. We interrupted this for you. For you too. Chaitanya? There is a Sophie, the mother of all of us, because she genuinely brought Nonny and I together and has been basically behind us and with us since the beginning, basically introduced us and has just helped us launch, has basically helped create this structure that we're in, and basically nothing that we were able to do would be possible without you. So thank you. There's a little card in there. So here's your little gift. Natasha is a very new member of the team who joined us mid-late last year. Yeah. Natasha is the legend who produced this entire event, who has sorted you out with the food, who has worked out on the sound, access, comfort, fun, everything, and has not slept in many, many weeks. who has slotted into our family so beautifully in a way that I feel we've known you for ages, and also shares my love of football. So once we're done here, Natasha and I are going to go and finish the match, and just had a lot of fun. And yeah, just really loved having you. And so you also have a little card. It's not just a card. There's something inside. Don't worry. And Dylan has been with us since a year, recently turned 1, is a regular attendee to all of our strategy sessions, is such an excellent participant during the retreats, gives us wonderful on Zoom, brings us so much joy and feels so much like our child, like Nonny is not Anar's child as it is Sophie and Sean's. And so we just, this is a little birthday present for Dylan. And I think there's a card there for him as well. So I was going to suggest that we sing Dylan happy birthday, but my feeling is it would not go down well. So maybe you can just go and wish him happy birthday at some point before he heads to sleep today. And to my partner, so Chaitanya, so one of my life partners, Chaitanya, for just being the backbone of today's, just running around endlessly, being out in the cold, just doing all the tasks, just being there all the time. You're fantastic. And my other life partner, Nonny, who I love working with every day. So thanks. And now you can tell them about the fun.
Do you know, it's so interesting. I'm not, every time we do DE stuff, I'm not a public crier, but I'm crying on the inside. So, I just want you to know that. I mean, this always happens, and I'm like, I love you, and I'm so grateful for the beautiful things we've done together. And yeah, I just, so much gratitude. And also, feels like, we were all saying it's like a wedding. And the marquee is very wedding. One more group of people to shout out today. Nourishing Economics crew, identify yourself. Yeah! Shout out to our year-long friends, comrades, who've just been there, who've done cool things with us, who've sung karaoke with us, who have just, it's just been beautiful from just being a small team to just having such a great community of people to organize with, and we just are so appreciative of all of you. Thank you. And yeah, we love you guys. Last but not least, tech. If you know me and Guppi, we're very what? Oh yes. How could we forget? So, tech people. Me and Guppi are flip chart, pen people, project your voice. The amazing skills of just skilling us up. Look at all this setup. Have you ever come to a DE event with any of the setup? I don't shout out to Kira, shout out to... Yeah, and all the mics work. Shout out to Kira, shout out to Zach, shout out to Daniel. Thank you so much for your help today. Shout out to John, who literally stepped in last minute. And it's just been amazing. Shout out to Noah, who's taking the videographies. And shout out to Curtis, podcast. It's just, we're so excited for all the beautiful things we're creating. And last but not least, shout out to the volunteers. It's just, we couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for standing out in the rain, holding down the marquees at some point. It's just, thank you so much. And also, sorry, Kavian, the way that you made that chicken, that deserves its own shout out. And with that, wait, one more thing. Yes. Again, the designers who have helped us. Shout out to Partial, Multitudes. Devs from Multitudes who's helped us with our new website. You should check it out. Nourishing Economics is beautiful and has a great team. Shout out to Harvey for the illustrations. Shout out to Migrants and Culture for putting together the zine. Do you all have a zine? Because you should get one. You're missing out. And yeah, is that everyone? Oh, of course. Shout out to ancestors. We're going to shake a leg for them in a bit. And so, logistics, because we have to end on logistics always. Also, D, bookshop. How can we forget? Next thing that's going to happen. 1, clear up the chairs. If you have a black chair, fold it up. There's a rack over there where you just slot it in. 2, we're going to do some music and DJ and set the band up. So between now and within 5 minutes, we're going to set the band up. And then the band we're going to do a song. And then Tribe is going to DJ. And also, if anyone wants to help with setting the bar up, go to Guppi. So, just sparkling water bar. Dylan, do you have anything to say? Fab, thank you. Right, cool, 5 minutes, and then don't go. Please come and dance with us and sing the song. Should we let them know what the song is going to be? No. Not yet? Okay. Who knows the music of Luther Vandross? What's it called? Never too much. Never too much. Because it's never too much. So yeah, 5 minutes and then we're going to get on to the song. Thank you.